Welcome back, guys. Hope your weekend has been wonderful. And yesterday, if you saw that video, we talked about a lot of very messed up things, to put it lightly. In this video, we've got some stuff that's actually a bit comedic, as Collective Shout continues to rack up those L's. And we have this news outlet, abc.net.au, aka the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, which is Australia's principal public service broadcaster, funded primarily by grants from the federal government and is administered by a government-appointed board of directors. And they actually got a response, a statement from Collective Shout here too. It's going to be hilarious to take a look at. Spoiler alert, they are trying as hard as they can to play victim. But before we take a look at that, let's very briefly take a look at one of Collective Shout's latest L's. The context begins here, when MasterCard made their damage control post trying to deny the stuff that's been going on, and they got called out in the community notes. But I've already covered all this stuff. We've talked about this stuff, so we're going to skip this. The reason we're here is because this response that MasterCard got from the VTuber Saray, and you can see that she's tagged 3 different accounts here. She's tagged Collective Shout, also Steam, and itch.io, but Steam and itch.io are in blue. Collective Shout is not in blue. What we can presume this means then is that whoever was on the Collective Shout account was getting notifications for this tweet where they were getting called out and notifications of people like responding here, and they're seeing this stuff and they're seething. They're so upset about being called out here that they manually removed themselves from this tweet so they would stop getting notifications for it. It's just hilarious to me imagining whoever's running that account like seeing this stuff and seething behind the screen and clicking those 3 dots. I think that's how you do it. You click the 3 dots and you're like on tag yourself or whatever the specific phrasing is. Let's read this and see what's got them so upset. So Saray says to MasterCard, "You claim to follow the law and avoid moral judgments, yet you let foreign extremists like Collective Shout influence you and how you enforce your policies, banning entire broad categories of legal entertainment to appease their agenda. This directly contradicts what Steam and itch.io have said. You've turned your platform into a weapon against free expression and your own customers." Oh, by the way, Collective Shout, Saray, she is in fact a woman. I know Collective Shout likes to pretend that it's only the misogynistic men who are criticizing us and women support what we're doing. There's been so many women calling them out and they always try to deny it. So hey, here's another one for you. Now let's go back to that ABCAU article that's got the statement, the response from Collective Shout. "The removal of thousands of adult video games from digital storefronts has sparked an online outcry, claiming censorship and free speech crackdowns. The outrage began when Steam, the world's largest PC gaming store, created a new rule saying content on the platform had to adhere to the policies of payment processors, including PayPal, Visa, and MasterCard. After the new rule was added about 2 weeks ago, hundreds of adult-themed games were removed from the platform. It includes games with titles that, yeah, I'm not going to read those titles, but there you go. A few days later, a smaller game storefront, itch.io, announced it was delisting all games tagged with not safe for work content. In a blog post, itch.io founder Leif Corcoran said the decision to remove all NSFW games without notice was made to satisfy the demands of payment processors while they made changes to their adult content policy. Mr. Corcoran said games would be made public on the store again once its adult content policy had been updated and if the games adhered to it. On July 28th, the platform updated its policy with specific themes that were prohibited for developers like these listed there. Steam and itch.io did not respond to the ABC's request for comment. Why did these platforms do this? The policy changes came after a targeted campaign from Australian not-for-profit Collective Shout, which describes itself as a campaign movement against the objectification of women and the sexualization of girls. In May, it launched a campaign calling on payment processors to pressure Steam and itch.io to remove hundreds of games featuring these themes. Campaign manager Caitlin Roper said she had identified 491 games on Steam tagged with similar themes there before launching the campaign. And she went on to say, "This is not merely fictional. These attitudes don't just stay in fiction." So the exact same argument that people tried during all that like gun craze stuff of like, oh, GTA and violent games are going to cause more people to do shootings and stuff like that, you know, the stuff that like statistically didn't end up panning out. Well, it seems like the same sort of rhetoric is being used here. And it's like, well, this rhetoric's already been disproven. Why would you still try and use this as your talking point? But I guess, you know, Collective Shout isn't sending their brightest, or maybe this is their brightest and this is the best that they've got. That could very well be it too. She didn't stop there, though, continuing to say, this kind of misogyny and normalization of violence against women feeds real-world harm to women and to girls. Yeah, I'm just going to point out the obvious that many people have pointed out before, including myself, which is that Collective Shout has made, according to my recollection, over a dozen tweets, not even including posts on their own website, and posts from other people, a part of Collective Shout on their own personal accounts, where they were defending cuties. And you have the audacity to try and talk about some faux concern you have about real world harm to women and to girls. So you go after video games, but you're fine with that. Really quick segue to Madam Savvy. We're just going to watch like the first 30 seconds of this video from Madam Savvy, and you'll see why it ties in perfectly with what we just discussed and what we just read. Then we'll hop back, over to that ABC AU article and take a look at the rest of the statement, the rest of the response from Collective Shout's Roper, campaign manager Roper. Here you go.
A lot has happened since I was in Canada. Thanks to exposing them, several of Collective Shout staff have taken it upon themselves to double and triple down on their defense of cuties, as well as other actions.
Bruh.
Oh, that's right. I didn't include that last time. Collective Shout actually breaks rank with NCOS and other groups and wants to die on the hill that 650 little girls needed to be exploited and abused in their auditions, which included twerking, and the remaining cast absolutely needed to dance provocatively for the film because it started a conversation.
Oh my gosh, dude.
That ultimately went nowhere. But yeah, Detroit Become Human bad, cuties good.
Yeah, they've gone after a lot of video games, as you know, including Detroit Become Human. They tried to cancel that in Australia. To my recollection, when I looked into that, it failed, but they did try. And when it comes to Collective Shout defending cuties, as you can see here, one of their members, Renee K. Chopping, says, cuties depicts the sexualization of girls, but it doesn't promote it. And it's like, dude, they literally exploited girls to make that film. There is no defending this thing, and yet you see so many people in Collective Shout and the organization itself constantly, trying to defend cuties. It's just unbelievable that they want to take this position. And as Madam Savvy says, they double down, triple down. I mean, this is the hill that they want to die on, apparently. And Collective Shout campaign manager Roper was not done there. They write, Miss Roper said the censorship and free speech arguments were misogynistic. Bro, I don't even know what to say with some of the stuff that I cover. It's misogynistic. Criticizing Collective Shout in of itself and trying to stand up for free speech and being against censorship, that is misogynistic, guys. Oh my gosh. What we're seeing is freedom of speech being used as a justification for misogyny and male violence against women, and men claiming free speech in defense of their access to these games, she said. Miss Roper said she and her team had received countless threats of physical and other types of violence in recent weeks. This is not fiction. We are real women in the world being inundated with threats of these terrible things and just the worst kind of misogynistic abuse you can imagine. The article goes on to talk about some dude named Keogh, who's not a part of Collective Shout, and I'm going to skip that because I want to stick on the Collective Shout thing and Miss Roper here. This section, group says campaign wasn't targeting all NSFW content. Miss Roper said Collective Shout's campaign was only intended to remove these very explicit type of games. Collective Shout's movement director, Melinda Tankard-Reese, said the suggestion that campaign was targeting LGBT content was a slanderous lie, saying Collective Shout is diverse. It's a miracle. It's all... Wait, Collective Shout is diverse. It's a miracle. It all holds together, she said. But we come around to common cause for a world free of sexploitation. Yeah, right. Ms. Tankard-Reese said the abuse and threats from people online had been aggressive and constant, but that they wouldn't stop the group from continuing to campaign. This has been a 24/7 operation to protect ourselves and our systems, she said. But once we get through this, we will certainly look at how we can expand the good things that have come out of this campaign. This is a win. This is a win. Yeah, as they said all over their accounts before they locked those accounts into protected mode, hiding from any criticism and trying to frame all of it as just misogynistic abuse and taking like the most extreme examples and trying to put that label on all the criticism that they've been getting. As you can see, for example, Sare's response calling her out wasn't abusive at all, and they still untagged themselves from that one. They didn't want to they didn't want to face that reality. No, instead they'll just pretend like everything is just a bunch of like very, very horrible things coming from men, and that they're not getting any reasonable level-headed critiques at all, despite the fact that they are, of course. But hey, that would go against their narrative of trying to paint themselves out like these wonderful, virtuous people who are also the biggest victims out there. And we're going to close with something both awesome and hilarious. You can see GOG.com right here saying censorship is quietly deciding which games you can buy. We are fighting back. Some games vanish not because they broke the law, but because someone decided they shouldn't exist. For 48 hours, these games are free, because if a game is legal, you should be free to buy it. And you can see this counter where they have 8 hours and change left. So depending on when you watch this video, consider checking that out for some games that are free to claim. And what I find hilarious is that they included Postal 2 as one of those free games, and it's the first one on the list too. This is a game that Collective Shout probably hates. It's a very violent game that they are probably very upset with, and the devs of Postal 2 were even making fun of Collective Shout before, which is just the icing on the cake. And here's the tweet that I'm talking about from Running with Scissors. These are the devs of Postal 2. So in-game, there's like a part of the game where you have these activists who are protesting against violent games with signs like, "We hate gamers, blah, 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 blah." And they made this edit where the activists in-game are now wearing like Collective Shout merch, like Collective Shout's logo right there. I'll be back over to GOG.com, GOG. Here are the other games that they have for free. Some of them I can't even scroll any further down because the like preview image is too explicit to show. And these all seem like the sort of games that Collective Shout would really hate. So it's just hilarious seeing how hard Collective Shout has been getting mocked, how much they've been getting memed on. GOG's official statement is right here, and they say in 24 hours, 1 million people have claimed the freedom to buy games and shown their support. So if you want to claim those games, type in freedom to buy GOG and it should pop right up. And no, I can't link to it directly. There's like NSFW stuff on there, and YouTube's TOS would YouTube would probably get mad at me if I did that per their TOS. So, you know. The response is so much beyond our expectations that our team needs to work around the clock to maintain the stability of the platform. For people who had difficulties claiming the games, we're expanding the action by a few hours. Take action quickly. And remember, any DRM-free game you get and download from GOG can never be taken away from you. Any game that disappears today becomes exponentially harder to revive later. Censorship is quietly deciding which games you can buy. We are fighting back. So yeah, bit more optimistic video than yesterday's. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. There is still a lot of crazy stuff going on that I want to talk about. If I can make a second video today, I certainly will. If not, I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, and of course also in the comments here. Have a great rest of your weekend, and please consider liking and or subscribing if you enjoyed my coverage, as it helps out greatly, and I'll see you in the next one.